When it comes to Love Life recently, there's been a surplus of content. 4 groups they're maintaining, 5 if you count the musical, multiple anime seasons and movies coming out. They're pretty on board with everything, well, except the games. It's hard to believe how many groups are active right now, especially if you compare it to how it was back then, when there was only just one group being maintained at a time. Love Life as a franchise has grown, so I thought it'd be interesting to take a look back at how they handled their second group after Muse, Aqours. This video is going to be mostly focusing on Sunshine, the anime series, and not the actual real-life counterpart, although I will be bringing it up in an important later part of the video. I'm interested in seeing how they followed up after Muse disbanded, and how it did well in transitioning people from Muse to Aqours. A quick synopsis for those that haven't watched Love Live Sunshine or need a refresher. Love Live Sunshine is the sequel series to Love Live School Idol Project, where 9 students from Honoka High School become Muse, a group of school idols that perform as, well, idols. They represent their school, go to concerts, be super cool and inspiring everyone, a beacon of hope, you know, the usual. Within the series, school idols participate in Love Life, the ultimate competition to see who was the best school idol group. This culminates in Muse being the most famous school idol group in the world, and disbanding shortly after, leading to an orange-haired girl named Chika to be inspired by them, and soon want to be just like them. This would lead to Chika forming Aqours, with her group also being 9 members and also participating in Love Life. Strange, isn't it? You start to see a familiar pattern, and that's why I thought first. If it ain't broke, don't fix, I suppose, but the rehashing of certain elements and plot points make you think that we're just getting Muse 2.0. But surprisingly, and I mean that in a really good way, it doesn't lead to that. One thing I applaud the writers for is showing how influential Muse was to the world and its characters. Their aura permeates throughout the entire series, being the driving force behind Chika's determination for a big part of the series. Their influence goes even further, motivating certain characters in the show, and it really pushes the fact that this is a sequel series. Now this in itself can be dangerous. You're acknowledging how important Muse was, but you're also kind of retreading familiar territory. Just because you acknowledge something doesn't mean you're exempt from criticism of it, and the writers are aware of that. They play it heavily with 2 things, Chika Takami and Arana Hoshihai. Chika Takami is someone who, at the beginning, wants to have something she can be passionate about, something she could be great at and be captivated in, and it's seeing Muse that gives her the idea of being a school idol. She considers herself a normal person, or a normal monster for using her terms. She doesn't have anything special, but when she saw Muse, she realized that maybe it doesn't matter. Muse seemed normal too, but they were radiating with an energy that can infect anyone. One thing that leads to Sunshine and School Idol Project feeling similar are the 2 protagonists, Honoka and Chika. At first glance, they seem really similar. Both energetic, both determined so hard the motivation spreads to others and makes them say, you know what, sure, why not, and join in. It's the reuse of this trope along with others that lead to a really good twist down the narrative. I'll get more into Chika later, but the second thing I want to talk about is Arana Hoshihai. In School Idol Project, the original reason why Honoka wanted to become idols was that their school was shutting down due to a lack of students, and seeing that idols in another school were popular, she decided the best course of action was becoming an idol herself. Ultimately, it would lead to the school being saved and continuing on. That story is famous in the world of Love Life. Everyone knows it. They became the best idols in the world and achieved their goal of saving their school. Cut to episode 6. Arana Hoshi High School is getting shut down due to a lack of students. We see this, Chika sees this, and it's her chance. They're like Muse, they can do the same thing, become the best school idol and save their school. It's so blatant in our face that we're waiting for something to happen. Chika wants to imitate Muse. Obviously she wants to save the school because she loves her school, but a large part of her head is like, oh my god guys, it's like Muse for real. Then as the series goes on, it starts to follow a pattern. They start competing in tournaments, meet their own rival group, but then something interesting happens. They compete in a tournament and fail. Hard. Out of everyone that voted for the participants, not a single one voted for them. It's a very heart-wrenching scene, especially given the successes they've been getting previously. The one important factor here though is Chika and how she reacts. Now, Honoka in School Idol Project was very upbeat. She was naive, a bit clumsy and stupid in a lot of ways, but her energy was always there and served as a guiding beacon for Muse. Sometimes her energy would make her oblivious to a lot of things, but over time she would grow to become a bit more aware and soon have her energy not make people go, sure, why not, and instead, let's do this together. Despite her struggles, she never directly cried or broke down, I think. Chika initially appears to be the same, with her upbeat energy encouraging those to join her, but we see early on that she's very demeaning to herself. She calls herself normal and no one special, and she isn't as oblivious as other people think. When they're about to enter the first tournament, she admits that she was scared of having expectations held upon her despite not showing it publicly. When they fail, Chika holds back the urge to be sad like everyone else. The little scene where she waits to hide her sadness before going to the others is always a favorite scene of mine. She tries to be the beacon of hope, and even her friends know something else. Like, there's no way you're still optimistic right now. And she isn't. They failed, and they get told that the competition for school idols is fierce. Ever since Muse blew up, everyone's trying to become an idol, and it's not a great way of showing how much of an impact they were. This frustration of Chika leaves her in a slump. She looks at Muse wondering how they did it, and it eventually leads to her breaking down in frustration of everything. Not a single vote. Despite all the effort they did, they got nothing. She tries to hide this so hard, even to her friends, until she isn't able to hold it anymore and cries to everyone, leading to everyone reinforcing their dreams of becoming school idols. This scene establishes a few things. Obviously, Chika is not Honoka. That much is apparent, and that's important to us, the audience. Stay with me now. The reuse of multiple tropes was to eventually show how different they are, both Chika and Honoka, but also Muse and Aqours. You put them in similar situations with similar personalities, but use the aftermath of those situations to show how different they are. After Aqours forms into the full 9 members, Chika is still held up on Muse. She tries to figure out what they were thinking, with Saint Snow suggesting that they just do what they did and see what they saw in order to understand what they were going through. Chika wants to know what made them different. They've been doing the same thing as them, but their paths are different. No students are enrolling in their school, and it makes her question what's wrong with them. In a really nice scene, the whole group of Aqours goes to Otonokizaka High to get a better understanding of Muse and how they achieved what they did. But when they do, they get told by one of the students that when Muse left, they didn't leave anything behind. They knew that their hearts would be connected without them. And I think a point to note here, in this sequel series, we do not get a single appearance of any current Muse member. Besides the baby Honoka and a few unconfirmed cameos, we do not have any Muse members for them to talk about their experiences. And that's good. Aqours is left to form their own thoughts on what made Muse great. And it comes down to this one point. They were themselves. They acted freely how they wanted to, and it wasn't about being the best. Chika realizes they can't compare themselves to them. They can't follow their footsteps. They shouldn't chase after that. They should be chasing their own path, running freely. This whole season so far was placed them in so many similar situations that their path was pushing them towards imitating Muse. But it's here where they realize that's not the right path for them. So they break off to their own personal goal, their own dream. They are not Muse, or trying to be Muse. They are Aqours. Now some of you may be saying, well, no shit, Sherlock, they use the same tropes to be twisted into original story. What's the point? And to that I say, it was a big revelation to me, damn it! Because think about it from the writer's perspective and the people behind Love Life. Let's shift to real life. When Muse disbanded in real life, yes, they were real in real life, there was doubt and a bit of uneasiness when they shortly announced a new group was coming. And to be clear, I was not there, so everything I'm saying is based on suspicions and old Reddit boards. But the main question was, what makes this new group Aqours different from Muse? Are they Muse 2.0? They don't seem special to me, and they had to sort of prove that. This leads to the anime, which, in my opinion, being the most important factor to get people on board for Aqours. Anime, as a form of media, is very easy to consume and get into. Imagine trying to get into Aqours just the real life Sayu stuff. You need to find the videos first, see if they have subs and weren't taken down by YouTube, or you have to be a social media enthusiast and know the right place to look for translators and the like. This is still a problem, and it's why it's difficult to get into certain new Love Life stuff like Hasuna, which requires you to jump through a few hoops and watch stuff made by dedicated members. God forbid you want ease of access. Bit of a tangent there, but it's to further this point how anime is so easy to get into. I want to say Nijigasaki was the same, but I want to have Valve source for that before I say anything concrete. Back to Love Life Sunshine. When this was being created, I can imagine the people behind Love Life wanting to figure out a way to show that this isn't just a repeat, that there is a point to making this new group and that's not just Muse 2.0. Going down the path of imitating the previous series so blatantly was an interesting move, and I can imagine those watching it weekly back then being like, this is just the same! It takes a lot of build up, but I feel that making the journey of Sunshine Season 1 being we have to learn how to not be Muse is poetic in a sense. Because it had to be that way in real life at first as well. It's the only thing you have to really base it off of, and it's a matter of imitation until you can find your own path. That could be compared to a lot of things in life, like art and cooking, replicating certain things until we branch out to be our own person. As the first season of this new Love Life series, it had a lot of expectations and needed to prove itself, and I think it did really well in showcasing how different they are by the end of it. By luring us in with similar character tropes in similar situations, it whiplashes us into showing the bigger differences between them. It takes a bit, almost the whole season, but it makes for a really good conclusion on how Aqours became their own. I want to say the other Love Life series didn't need to prove itself in a way, but that's for two reasons. One, since they were after Aqours and it was confirmed Aqours was still going to be around, it wasn't as much of a success or didn't have much expectations. Well, I mean it did, but you know. And secondly, the continuity is kind of weird. In these new Love Life series, Muse and Aqours don't get much of a mention. There's Easter eggs and cameos to reference them, but they serve no core importance to the story. And that's good. Just merely introducing the idea of Aqours and Muse puts expectation on them, and I think both in the lore aspect and real life aspect, it's better they serve as just Easter eggs. You may have heard me say that later Love Life series didn't need to prove itself, but I was slightly lying. Nijigasaki kind of had to prove itself since it was kind of a side project at first, but I need more valid source for that before I say something concrete. Huh, that's the second time I said that. Hey, future Noodle here, I'm just gonna rephrase my statement here because I feel like some people may misinterpret it, but what I was trying to say here with Aqours is that the expectation of having to follow a different group was much more substantial than Nijigasaki and Layla. And of course, those have their haters too. I just recently saw a tweet by my friend Mimo talking about like Layla Gen 1, Gen 2, and there were some very not good comments about how Layla as a whole was just really bad, and that was the same thing with Nijigasaki. I'm not trying to invalidate Nijigasaki or Layla's struggle, I'm just simply stating that Aqours took sort of like the big step in order to get people eased into the series, although of course there are always going to be haters not liking. That's always going to be a given. I just want to say that Aqours gave these groups the chance to not be successors, but just be branching off to their own path and do things whatever they want. They can experiment a lot of times, and it's really cool. I didn't mean to sound like a hater in any way, but anyway, back to the video. For my final words though, Love Live Sunshine is a very important mark in Love Live history. It represented the first transition from one group to another, and there were many eyes wondering what the point of it was. How this group going to spice things up, change the flow, or was it going to be the same? No one really knew, and we had to watch to find out. This was going to determine the perception of how people saw Aqours. Now, did it work? I don't know, I'm not an analyst. Yet. I'm starting to be one. I believe it worked, however, despite the slow build-up, and I think it did the hard first step to accepting new groups in Love Live. No other season is this focused on the previous group, and I think there's a reason for that. The reason being what I just said. Now, I won't be talking about Season 2 or the movie. They're both fine, but the importance of Season 1 is something I wanted to focus on. It begins the path to separating from Muse, and Season 2 does more of it, with certain events happening that split their path with Muse even more. And hey, if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. I've been rambling all along, so it's okay if you can ramble too, as long as they're respectful and stuff. I love Love Live. It's been a series that's very important to me, and recently I've been falling back into it, and I've recently got to see it with a new fresh pair of eyes, a new different point of view. Anyway, I'm Noodle, and I don't really have anything more to say, so yeah.